You see it on your wife's phone, naked photos she sent to the neighbor, and a message saying your newborn son looks just like him. Your world collapses. Even though you're furious beyond measure, you don't confront her. Not because you don't want to, but because you don't have a dime saved. If you expose everything, you have absolutely no fallback. You can't make sense of it. You work your ass off every day. And in the end, you are left with absolutely nothing. That night, you count your pay stubs, side gigs, and tiny bonuses. Realizing you don't even have the courage for one single argument, suddenly it hits you: if you had money, you could choose freedom. If you don't, you are forced to endure betrayal. Facing your wife's affair helplessly is a man's deepest humiliation. So you start planning quietly. First goal is to earn $100,000, because when you reach $100,000, wealth starts to feel different. Not romantically, actually it's brutally simple. The issue has never been rate of return, it's scale. Look at what actually happens when you invest $1,000. At a 10% annual return, you make $100 in a year. Same return rate, same year, absolutely no magic involved. Invest $10,000 at 10%, that is $1,000. Invest $100,000 at 10%, $10,000 straight up. This is exactly where many disciplined people get trapped. They spend years hunting for the perfect investment or the perfect platform. Hunting for the perfect strategy as if being smarter will bend reality. The real problem is glaring on the screen: your base is too small. Because your base is too small, the results are inevitably tiny. Once you see that, most traditional financial advice starts to crumble. Just increase your return rate sounds powerful, but the math doesn't lie. The gap between being smart and having scale is huge. When capital is small, even a solid return barely touches your life. When capital grows, the same return starts paying bills and covering rent, replacing a car fund, and actually changing your daily choices. That is exactly why wealth often feels like it accelerates. So if you've been secretly frustrated that your money isn't growing, you need to stop chasing those elite opportunities right now. The first lie you need to kill is about magical investments. Wealth starts the moment your money is big enough for the math to work. Let's talk numbers. If you save $1,000 a month, at an 8% annual return, it takes about 7 years. 7 years to finally hit $100,000. 7 years of steady transfers, resisting lifestyle upgrades, delaying gratification, just sitting there, watching your bank balance crawl upwards. That is the brutal part that most people completely underestimate. But then arithmetic takes over. There is no magic here. Once the first $100,000 exists, things change. The next $100,000 doesn't rely solely on your monthly input. Now 8% returns compound on a much bigger base, not just on principal, but on the earnings already made. The second $100,000 takes about 4 years instead of 7. You haven't changed, and the market hasn't changed either. The next $100,000 takes just over 3 years, not because life suddenly got fair, but because your money works. Your money starts employing more money to do the heavy lifting. One layer earns money, the next layer earns on that money. And then it just keeps compounding over and over again. This is why early financial advice obsesses over cutting small expenses, tracking every unnecessary purchase like your life depends on it. It's not because that oat milk latte will ruin you. It's because when compounding is weak, any cash leak is deadly. Early on, you don't have an army of investments fighting for you. The proof of this concept becomes very sharp much later. Once you hit $1 million, things get ridiculous. Earning an extra $100,000 from returns takes just over a year. A leap that took 7 straight years of monthly savings can eventually happen in a single year thanks to the assets. That is why it feels slow at first, then suddenly fast. The machine wasn't broken, it was just too damn small. The real trap isn't slow progress, it's how it feels. That slow progress feels exactly like a bitter personal failure. At the start, you did almost everything perfectly right: saving, managing subscriptions, resisting small luxuries, and investing consistently. Yet you still wake up feeling like absolutely nothing changed. That feeling drains people psychologically because labor is immediate. Asset growth is delayed, and here is what's really happening. If you earn $60,000 a year and invest 20%, that is $12,000 a year, which sounds fine. But for a long time, your wealth grows mostly from your effort. It grows from your sweat, not from your actual money. Your time is working, your schedule is the actual machine. You get tired, distracted, and only invest when paychecks arrive. This is the completely overlooked dividing line in your life. Are you still almost entirely reliant on your labor income? Or do you have enough capital for compounding to take over, to act as a second worker in the room with you? Before that threshold, growth in absolute dollars is just tiny. After crossing it, the same return suddenly becomes very real. Same market, same math, but a totally different life experience. That's why two people can invest, but only one feels wealth accelerating. Once you get this, the rich get richer stops being a slogan. It stops being a slogan and becomes a mechanical reality. At 8% average returns, investing $12,000 a year. For 23 years, it grows to roughly $730,000. Just 4 more years and you surpass $1 million. The drama happens late, not because year 24 got smarter, but because the asset base finally does a lot more work. That is the tipping point. First you feed your portfolio, and then the portfolio finally starts feeding itself. Failing to understand this makes the early struggle feel like proof. Proof that investing doesn't work, when in reality you are just early. You are just stuck on the labor-dominated, low ownership curve. So if it feels hard, it doesn't mean you are behind. It simply means your capital isn't yet big enough. Big enough to actually reduce your heavy dependence on labor. And that is the game, shifting from every dollar depending on you to more and more money coming from what you already have. Be honest with yourself. Where are you right now? Here is a practical shift most people avoid because it's boring. Stop looking for magical investments and do this instead. This month, just increase your monthly contribution by a tiny amount. Not later. You need to do this right now. Pick a number so boring you can't even argue with it. Maybe it's 2 takeout meals, or an unused subscription, maybe an extra $50 or $100 on payday. One simple action, no market genius, no complex spreadsheets, just an automatic rule executed before you even argue with yourself. People get stuck chasing an extra 1 or 2%, hopping platforms, checking funds, staring at charts, feeling diligent. But the real leverage that accelerates results isn't hidden in code, it is in the space between income coming in and leaking out. $200 a month over 30 years at 10%, that gives you under $400,000. Raise the return 2% and maybe you hit $600,000. It's significant, but the lesson here isn't about returns. The lesson is to act on what you can control right now. So you need to make your habits completely mechanical. Open your banking app and on payday set automatic transfers, or increase them and then leave it alone for 90 days. No life redesign and absolutely no massive budget overhaul. Just one rule, every raise, bonus, or side income. Direct it to investments before your lifestyle inflates. The market magnifies capital. That is what it does. Your job is to keep producing capital that can be magnified. If you had to choose, would you spend a year chasing perfect returns? Or build a system that quietly adds money every single month? The promise here isn't reaching $100,000 for private jets. The real promise is smaller, yet infinitely more precious. You simply become much harder for the world to break. Money buys space in your schedule, your bills, and your choices. Wealth isn't about trapping you in a much bigger game. It's about giving you the right to step back and say no. To switch jobs, survive bad years, and handle emergencies, so your life doesn't just go up in flames. That's why I'd rather you increase your monthly contributions than obsess over squeezing out an extra 2% return. Bigger monthly contributions, sustained long enough, do 2 things. The numbers grow, and you finally train yourself. Live below your means, automate transfers, and ignore the noise. Keep moving when the market is boring, scary, or both. Later, when income rises through a job or side hustle, you don't suddenly need to learn how to have discipline. Because the track is already laid out for you. This is the only compounding story worth trusting. Not a get-rich-quick fantasy, but a growing safety net. A few $100s a month becomes a habit. That habit becomes a skill, and skill becomes choice. I'm curious, if more money gave you a real way out, what would it actually be for you? Quitting, cutting hours, sleeping better, or helping your family? Or maybe just finally not feeling so damn trapped?